started. I apologize for the delay. Thanks to all of you who hung out and suffered through that with us. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I would say the beauty of work from home over the last couple of years is it's given us a little bit more grace when it comes to getting all of this kind of thing handled. So we will kick off. Amy will rejoin. She was technically hosting today, so she'll rejoin when her internet is back up. I've got my hotspot running, so hopefully it continues. Cool. So welcome everyone to today's mailbag episode, if you will. One of the things we really enjoy doing is soliciting questions from you all who are out there doing the real work and seeing the sort of challenges and working with clients and generating a lot of great questions. So we want to reach out and see, hey, what are the questions that you have when it comes to running your practice, doing financial planning. And so we solicited questions. We got a ton of great questions. So I'm going to jump right in and kick off with sort of our first question. So and actually the first question is a poll, which I'm going to make visible now. And so the poll is, which question do you want me to start with? This is good practice. If you go on the right-hand side, there's a little thing. It looks like a bar chart, a little button below the chat. So if you go there, you can click that button, open it up, and you'll be able to see the poll. And so there are 5 questions here. I won't read all of them explicitly, but I want to see which one of these do you want me to answer first, and we will start there with the question. So let's see. We have, as an hourly advisor, how should I answer navigating questions between sessions, drowning in email? How can clients explain the value of a monthly fee model to clients with ongoing advice, especially in comparison to AUM? How do you get a client motivated if they've hired you to handle everything? Let's see, the questions are jumping around now based on the percentage of responses. Let's see, be sure I get the right one. What advice do you have on client retention? Seems easy to show value in the first year. All right, we'll give it just one more second if you'll get your vote in, and then we will close it out and kick off with some of our first questions. So, and again, good practice to know where the polling is. We have a few polls that we will drop in here as we go. So just be on the lookout for that, and I'll give you let you know where to go. Okay, let's see. So number one question, how can advisors explain the value and monthly fee model to clients on ongoing financial advice, especially in comparison to the AUM model? This is an awesome question. If we go back to the early days of fee only, when NAPFA was just getting started, I think back in the 80s is really when fee only planning kind of got started and was making a surge. People said no one will ever pay for financial planning, right? No one's going to pay for the thing that they get for free with on the commission side. So we should, you're going to have to charge something. And they say, well, I think people are willing to pay for advice. I think they're willing to pay, for sort of investment management, financial planning, and actually know what they're paying. And out of that was born the AUM model because it made a lot of sense back then that was the model. We were working on retirement planning. We had their assets. So why not charge 1%? And so, really 8 years ago when XYPN was launching, we got to ask the same question. Why is someone going to pay a fee for financial planning when they're already getting it for free as part of the AUM fee? Like, why would they do that? And the truth is, what we have found is that consumers are willing to pay for advice as long as they see value. And the younger the generation, the studies show, the more willing they are to pay for financial advice. If you go back to our grandparents' era, they got, at least my grandparents got advice at the bank for free, right? From their local banker who, they go to McDonald's for coffee every morning, for the men's group, right? Like that's where the advice came from. And over time, I think we've come to realize what real fiduciary advice is versus a product sale, and we're seeing the benefits of that, of more and more consumers adopting fee for service, so or paying for financial advice. So when it comes down to the value of financial planning, I'm going to try to not say the word niche too much today, because unfortunately, so many of these questions, the first answer is like, well, what's your niche? Because I need to know that to answer the question. So I'm going to try to speak more generically. But showing the value of financial planning is a lot easier if you do have a well-defined niche. If you're an expert in a specific space where you can talk, that you are the expert, you can talk intelligently about the issues and the problems that those clients are facing. That's just a natural way that to be able to show value. The other way is, I don't want to say this. the truth is, I think so much of the value conversation is actually a fear from advisors and not something that clients are pushing. Because in the end, we see retention rates of clients very similar to clients that are paying on an AUM model. And so I don't think this is something consumers are having challenge with, because in the end, you're a great financial advisor providing great advice to your clients. And so therefore, they're seeing that value over time. So I would say this is something I see more in the heads of advisors than actual data from consumers that they just prefer to not pay for advice. They want real advice. All right, next question. What advice do you have on client retention? It seems easy to show value in year one during the initial plan. This is something I struggled with early on with my firm when I was a practicing advisor. And what I found was that, I was really good at selling the first year and all the things I was going to do for them. And really, that's that initial plan. I wasn't great at selling sort of this long-term vision of what a relationship really means to the client. And so I found myself selling the initial plan more so than I was selling the ongoing planning. And at year one, sort of when the plan's done, it was sort of like, okay, so I guess we're done. And I realized I was framing the relationship that way early on because I was talking about all the things we were going to do in the first year. And I didn't really address, all the things that we do on an ongoing basis. And so, there are a few ways that I would recommend doing this. One is really, for yourself, you've got to really see the value of financial planning on an ongoing basis. You have to be able to show that value. One of the things we recommend is having an annual service calendar that, shows, yes, here are the meetings, right? These are the 2, 3, or 4 times a year that we're going to meet. But then these are all the things we're doing for you throughout the year. And, in Q4, we're going to be reviewing your taxes for any tax savings opportunities before the end of the year. Then we're going to be reviewing your tax return. Be sure your CPA got it all right. We're going to be reviewing your retirement plan here, your estate plan here. We're going to be rebalancing your portfolio if that's part of your model. Like there's so much that you're doing on an ongoing basis, and recommend that you look for ways to deliver value, to deliver some of those touch points to clients throughout the year. And so much of this, again, I believe is sort of reframing it in our own mind as an advisor to say, hey, we believe the value is that, is in this ongoing relationship. I used to have a Carl Richards poster that had like me and then my advisor in the middle and then stupid on the other side of the advisor. So my as an advisor, I'm between my clients and making a stupid financial decision. That it can't be quantified. It can't be explained. Well, hey, in 2028, I'm going to help you avoid a really bad mistake. But the truth is you're going to, and that's what that's all about. I was recently sitting in on one of Kitsis's webinars, and I loved one of the framing. It was about behavioral finance. And one of the things Michael talked about was how people really want to know that they're going with the herd, actually. They don't want to be sort of this unique individual that's out there. They want to know, what are their peers doing? And being able to say, like, hey, we're here to provide best practices and advice, but also just best practices from working with dozens or hundreds of clients that are just like you, that are going through the same situation, and be sure that you're making good decisions. Those are just value adds that you can provide your clients as you go. Okay, let's see. The next question that was upvoted, let's see. As an hourly advisor, how should I navigate answering client questions in between sessions? I'm drowning in email. Yes. So when I started my firm, I was an hourly advisor. So I would sort of package hours and sort of for an upfront fee and then ongoing, but I would charge hourly. And this was a real challenge. The truth is, I'm not the biggest advocate of the hourly model. And this is part of it, is that it is a real challenge when you're an advisor who really wants to help people, and you're basically saying like, hey, sorry, like you got to pay me for my 15-minute increment in order to provide that, to answer that question. But in the end, that's what you have to do. Okay, so I'm gonna put this into 2 buckets. One is setting expectations, is that you have to have the conversation with your client when they're a prospect to be able to say, this is the expectation, this is how the relationship's going to work, and you receive email support or you don't receive email support. And if you email me, I will gladly respond, and we bill in 15-minute increments or 30-minute increments, whatever works for you and your firm. You have to set that expectation up front, because I don't think many times, or most of the time, clients aren't trying to take advantage of us. They're not emailing us like, oh, I'm going to get him or get her to answer all these questions for free. They honestly just have questions. And so I think setting that expectation up front. Another thing you might consider is packaging in some hours post-plan. So maybe take a look, who's emailing you, when are they emailing you, and maybe see like, hey, is there an opportunity here to package in 2, 3, 5, 10 hours, however many hours you need on the back end of the planning process and say, hey, like part of our initial plan is that you'll have 10 hours of services to be used within the next 6 months or within the next year, whatever that is. To be, in order to be able to get those questions answered. So you might take a look at sort of how that's working for you and see if you can find a way to package it and sort of pre-plan it. And the final thing is you have to bill in 15-minute increments or whatever your increment is. I'm going to say 15 minutes. Like you must bill, you must turn on a timer. That is what hourly planning is about, quite frankly, is that you have to be billing for the time that you're spending. And so unless you're going to raise your hourly rates up to $400 or $500 an hour in order to compensate for the hours you're not working, you need to be billing your time. And as an hourly advisor, I would encourage you need to be looking at reports of, how much of your time is being spent on billable hours versus non-billable hours on an ongoing basis, week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter. Those are things you should be evaluating. But that's just a reality of hourly planning. So, okay, I'm going to switch over and kick off. Let me be sure I get the right poll here. Scanning down really quick. So, sorry, I'm clicking around the system. Amy is the expert with this system. So, okay, so I'm going to kick off another poll. So if you go over to the poll section, you can pull that up. And the question is, what's the catalyst? Sort of what catalyst is driving you to pursue firm ownership? Or if you're already a firm owner, what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? What made you decide to no longer, work for someone else, but instead work on your own? On your own terms. So there are a few options in here, constantly hitting roadblocks in the industry, tired of others reaping the benefit of my work, tired of the hustle culture, being overworked, don't have control over the way I serve my clients, wanted to fill a gap in the market, just curious to get and this just helps me sort of frame up my answers and the way that I'm answering these awesome questions. So I sort of have this understanding of where are you coming from? What is your focus? What are the things that ultimately drive you when it comes to being a firm owner? All right, so while that poll is open, I'm going to go back and grab another one of these initial questions. How do you motivate clients who have hired you to handle everything, especially if they are not forthcoming with providing information? Yeah, I saw this in my own practice where the most motivated, high energy client, they come in, they're super excited to work with you. They say all the right things, they pay the fee, and then you just never hear from them. And the truth is, this is, in management, we would say this is when you go from delegation to abdication. When, delegation is here's a thing and I'm going to oversee it getting done. Abdication is here's the thing. I don't want to touch it ever again and I don't want to have to talk about it. Unfortunately, we can't do that for our clients. It's just not feasible in just the way that we operate. And so again, I think a lot of this is expectation setting up front and being able to say, ideally, I love visuals. So if you can have a visual of here's my process, we're in the discovery meeting today. That's what this is. And after you sign the contract, here's the next phase. We're going to do data gathering, and here's what's expected. Here's how much time it will take. You might also consider putting up some guardrails in terms of timing of, we're going to do data gathering during the month of April, and we're going to need that back by the end of the month. If you're not able to get that back to me because we're busy and we work with only a handful of new clients at a time, if the data gathering, sort of bleeds into the next month or two, then ultimately we would have to shift another client relationship. And so, later on, because I don't want to overload and not have time that I've committed to you. So we're going to need to, we may need to bump, the initial data gathering phase by 3 months or 4 months. If so, because we have a backlog and sort of a wait list of clients. Being able to do things like that, this sort of gives some structure to the relationship, allow you to protect your own time, your own energy, and again, for your other clients. But yeah, I really think this is one of those. It's one of those situations where there's just going to be some clients that want you to do it all and you can't, and so that may just be a relationship that doesn't work for you, because in the end, you should not be pulling teeth, right, in order to get data, to get questions. Now, one other consideration is, if this is happening to you a lot, you might take a look at your data request process, your onboarding process, and just ask yourself, is this just totally overwhelming? Maybe have a trusted family member, a friend, another advisor in your study group to jump in and go through that process with you and just say, hey, is this overwhelming? What do you think? Give me some feedback. We think of financial planning as all or nothing. We've got to gather all the information and we have to do the big financial plan. And in reality, clients are coming to us for us to help them solve a problem. All right. They have a sort of issue that they want solved. And so they're sort of in this acute pain point. No one wakes up one morning and says, you know what I want to do? I want to go talk to a stranger about money. Okay, that is not something that anyone thinks about. Okay, coming into a financial planner's office is not by chance. It's not random. It's because they have a specific issue. And I do see some advisors that are trying to do too much up front before actually just solving the pain point that they came in with. I mean, imagine going to the doctor. You have a broken leg. The bone is sticking out of the skin, and you go in and you say, "Doctor, I need help with my leg. Please fix it." And they go, "That's great. We're going to need to do a full body scan. We're going to do some blood work. We're going to have you exercise and see like how your heart rate is and your oxygen levels." Like, no, like could you fix my broken leg first and then we do all that? And I think what we do a lot of times as advisors is we're doing this whole full body examination when they just have an acute pain point. And so let's just fix that first. Maybe something to consider as well. All right, let's see. I'm going to go grab, I believe we had one more question, that first group. What suggestion do you have to keep clients informed between meetings in fresh ways, especially if the client situation isn't complicated? You know, I have to admit, I've never actually met someone whose situation wasn't complicated. Because if it's not complicated today, in about 2 months, it will be. But I hear you that there are some situations that are more complex. We're doing more throughout the year versus other clients. So ideas for how to keep it fresh, how to keep it exciting. And the truth is, so much of it, I think I'm a systems process guy. I don't naturally build them, but I really appreciate them. I think that somewhat is my ADHD, that it helps me to operate. If I don't have systems and processes in place, I'm just all over the place. And so having a system for how are you going to communicate to clients, what are you going to cover when, what gets reviewed on what cadence. And that goes back to that annual service calendar of, sort of this regular communication sequence. What emails are going out? Are you sending out a newsletter? Are you sending out, blog posts or a video, sending out a birthday present or an anniversary present, holidays, like whatever it is, so sort of what's that ongoing communication expectation that you're setting with your client? How often are you meeting? And then just really digging into various topics. And one of the things, as you go through the entire planning process, you might consider starting to develop some new tools in your tool belt when it relates to, I would say, financial psychology or financial therapy. So for instance, I'm reading this amazing book right now called The Gap and the Gain. It's from Dan Sullivan with Strategic Coach. But it's this really fascinating research. I can nerd out on this book for an hour, but it's this really fascinating research how happiness is driven when you measure progress versus when you measure how far you have to go. So the analogy they use, if you're halfway up a mountain and you look up and you go, wow, look how far I have to go, that's a really negative feeling. But if you look backwards and you see how much elevation you've gained, you're like, wow, look how far I've made it. And just that, you could read that book and probably implement 2 years worth of meetings and value for your clients. And it's not even written for financial advisors, but just around helping our clients see progress, be able to see all the things that they've accomplished, all the things that they've done. And you may say, well, yeah, I covered that last year. They don't remember. This is actually something they recommend doing daily for yourself, is setting goals and reviewing. And every day, every week, every month, every quarter, they have a system for sort of tracking progress. That's something you can help your clients do, is really sort of work through that. There's values exercises from think to perform. I mean, there's so much that you can do beyond just the nuts and bolts of financial planning. And yes, you probably don't need to review the estate plan again just to say you did it. And I know you don't want to fall back on and look at these beautiful charts of your investment returns, right? You want to have something tangible to talk about. So I'd put yourself out there. Go through George Kinder's 3-question or his Evoke training, which talks about his 3 questions that he's very famous for, but the ongoing progress of and sort of delivery of that value over time. There's so much out there that I would recommend that you dig into. Okay, I am going, now that we sort of went through our early questions, I'm going to be pulling out from our mailbag of questions that were submitted early on, and then we'll see how far we get. Or I guess I say early on as part of the registration process. Okay. What's the best way to explain in an artful way that clients will be paying on a monthly basis, but not necessarily be receiving the same level of service on a monthly basis? Again, this is one of those interesting things, and I'm going to caveat this by, depending on what state you live in, there are a few states that are a little bit more challenging when it comes to how much sort of how much benefit or how much you're working on a monthly basis if you're charging monthly. But in general, I prefer to not tell clients this is a monthly service. Okay, this is not a monthly service that you provide. This is an annual service. And that's why I like the annual service calendar. So over the course of the next year, here are all the things we're going to do for you. All right, go pull out your CFP textbook and all those topics. It's like 84 of them in there now, maybe more than that. Like that's what we do. And we're going to do this throughout the year. And for this service, we charge $3,600 a year. And to make it easier for you to pay, we charge $300 a month or $900 a quarter. But you're not going to get a lot more stuff in February. You are going to get a lot more value in February than March. We don't have to talk about that. I don't think clients are looking at this as long as we frame it correctly. We're not framing it as a monthly service. If you frame it as a monthly service, then yeah, every now and then you're going to be like, whoa, like I need to, I didn't get any value this month. I want my money back. So don't frame it as such. I would frame it as an annual service that you make it easy for them to pay monthly or quarterly because that's easier for cash flow, and we're not allowed to collect fees annually. But I think just that change in framing will have a pretty dramatic impact with your clients. How do you recommend structuring subscription programs so that subscribers receive what they need when they need it and continue to stay subscribed? Or should you have subscription lengths, such as 6 to 8 weeks or 6 months? So subscription programs, the way I read this question with subscription programs is more maybe on a coaching type program versus financial planning. I really don't see, I don't believe that the relationship with an advisor should ever end. I really believe all Americans would benefit from working with an advisor. Obviously, there's income limitations there, cash flow limitations for everyone being able to afford an advisor. But financial planning is a lifelong journey, and it's never done. One of the other, because I'm in the middle of reading it, I'll reference The Gap in the Gain a couple of times. But one of the things they talk about is so many times our goals and expectations are they're unachievable. All right, I want to be healthy. Healthy's never done. All right, I want to be financially independent. I want to be financially secure. That's never done. I want $3 million in the bank, producing $120,000 of income or passive income for my investments, so that I can do these things. That's a really that's a set goal. And so with a financial planning relationship, it's really never done because that true end target, it's just not attainable, right? And so, just new things are going to be coming at us every day, every month, every year. Our lives are just so busy. Like, just take a second and think about where you were 12 months ago, right? It's March 2nd, 2021. Maybe you were locked in your house with your kids, homeschooling. I don't know, wherever, maybe you had a job then and now you have your own firm. I don't know, but think about where you were 12 months ago. And think about all the things that have happened over the last 12 months that had some implication for you financially. If we took the time, it would be a really long list, all right? And so this is why I don't believe financial planning ever really has an end date, because in the end, it's just these new things are always happening, all right? They're just sort of always coming at us, because almost everything that happens in our life has some sort of financial impact. So think about that as you're sort of framing it up to clients around the types of services that you're providing. All right, one more question, and we'll kick off another poll. Let's see. What are some good ways to structure your day or week after going out on your own? Oh, time management. What a beautiful thing. It's kind of funny when you first start your firm, you're like, I've got nothing but time. And then, it doesn't take too long, a year or two in, you're just like, where did all my time go? I used to have so much of it. I almost can't remember what that was like. So yeah, time management and getting good at this is a really critical skill. I am not here to tell you that I'm great at it. I have a few systems that I use in order to give myself structure. Another book I highly recommend is the Miracle Morning. It's a really good book about just how important it is to give your day structure. They're really focused on sort of that first hour of the day, which I don't implement all of the training there, but I have a very regimented schedule. I wake up at the same time every morning. I get up, I have my morning snack, I work out, my kids get up, we do routine, I go to work, I have my work time, I go home, play with the kids, I do dinner, hang out with my wife for 30 minutes, and then I go to bed. And sort of like every day looks a lot like that because I've really given myself that structure. One of the things they recommend in the Miracle Morning is every hour of the day should have a purpose, even if the purpose is to do nothing. And so you might think about like giving yourself a schedule and saying, I worked these hours. Outside of these hours, you should be planning your non-work hours the same way you plan your work hours. Here's when I'm going on a date night. Here's when I'm spending time with my kids. Here's when I'm exercising. Here's when I'm spending time with friends. Here's when I'm meditating. All of the things that you want to do and incorporate, put it on a schedule. Because I will tell you, the first thing that entrepreneurs give up when they go solo and they start their own firm is, I would say, their physical health and their relationship health. And so put exercise on the schedule and treat it like you would any client meeting that you will show up to. You don't double book it. And if you're like me, I've got 3 kids, 7 and under. The only time to work out is before they wake up in the morning. So I used to be someone who slept in. I am no longer. I'm a morning person, apparently. So every morning I'm up at 5 a.m. because if I don't get up at 5, I don't work out. And so that's just something that I've had to do for myself. It took about a month before I quit crying in the morning when my alarm would go off. So that's one thing I would recommend, just giving that overall structure. And then throughout the week, get really clear on what are the priorities, because in the end, your priorities are where you spend your time. Okay. And so, but let's be sure you're spending your time on the most important things. It goes back to Dan Covey's rock concept, the rocks, the gravel, the sand, and the water. You put it all in the jar. It depends on, if you start with the water and then you put the sand, there's no room left for the big rocks. But if you start with the big rocks, you can sort of layer in the other things. And really that all comes down to priorities and setting those big rocks. What are the most important things? Is it getting clients? Is it, are you doing surge meetings? And so you need to be meeting with those clients regularly, or you sort of have this intense time? Is the next big thing a marketing push? Is the next thing a new technology, overhaul in your firm? Whatever those things are, be sure that you are prioritizing those and putting them on the calendar, and just get really clear and own that schedule. One metric of success that I have is just sort of like what I sort of had the priorities for the week. And then I try to look at, okay, what percentage of my time actually got spent on the most important things? It's not always the easiest thing to track. There are good time tracking softwares out there that you can use if you're willing to do that. Or you just go back and look at your calendar and say, at the end of the week, do an audit of the last 7 days and just look at the calendar and go, did I spend my time where it needed to be spent? Or should I have spent a little bit of time somewhere else? All right, I'm going to kick off the next poll. So if you go over to your poll section, let's see, we got 2 left, this being one of those. And so my question to you is just what support are you most looking for in sort of this journey of firm ownership? One thing that we recognize is that entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey at times, okay? It can be very isolating, or it can feel that way. It's one of the reasons we so recommend community and having a mastermind group, a study group, people who you can lean on in those times. But one of the things that I like to understand is just sort of what are you looking for? What do you feel like you're missing as you are really starting to build out your practice, as you're looking to ramp up your practice? And so there are a few options here, obviously: access to educational tools, technology solutions, and premium services that help me optimize my business, enterprise solutions to maximize team growth, because you're looking to grow the team. And so, it's a very different world when you're a CEO with employees or with team members versus it being mostly you or just you and one other person. And then involvement in a peer group, peer community. So again, this is just, it's helpful for me and it helps me frame up my answers as I understand sort of where's everyone at, what are you looking for, where do you feel like the gaps are for you or in the marketplace, or what XYPN is offering our members. It helps me to sort of frame that up. So thanks everybody for jumping in there. So I'm going to answer one more question, and then Katie, I don't know if you know this, I can actually see you. Katie is one of our marketers who makes this happen. She's backstage officially. She's actually in North Dakota. We're in Montana. But I'll have her give me a thumbs up. Katie, can you give me a thumbs up if Amy's going to come in and ask the questions from the Q&A? She gave me a thumbs down. So Amy's internet is still not. Oh, Katie's going to come in and ask the questions. So you'll have to welcome Katie here in just a second. So let me answer 1 or 2 more questions, and then we will start answering questions from the Q&A section. So if you go to the Q&A box, that is the second one down, you can ask your questions there. And if you like other people's questions, they'll get upvoted. And so I'll answer some of those live questions as well, and then come back to some of the earlier submitted questions if we run out of live questions. So let's see. I'm going to scan down through here and see what sort of a good final question will be. There's so much to know or to stay current with. How does an independent advisor ensure they don't unwittingly give bad advice? I love this question because you're absolutely right. There's just way too much information out there to ever possibly be an expert on everything. I remember in my early days, I did not have a niche. My website on the About Me page said I work with individuals and families. Okay, so if you were an individual or part of a family unit, I was your guy. So what did that mean? It meant I'd have one client come in who was a doctor with a ton of student loan debt, saving for retirement, negotiating the next compensation adjustment and days off and all the complexity there. Next client, and this is actually very similar to the sort of my early, like my first few clients. Next set of clients came in, they were in their 60s, recently retired, and their advisor had just retired. So they said they were looking for the youngest advisor they could find. So they never had to go through an advisor handoff again. So now I'm dealing with Social Security, pensions, a lot of stuff I had never dealt with. Pensions from a school system because they had both been school teachers, like just totally in left field. The next client came in. They had exercised some stock options. I believe it was ISOs, but they'd exercised early and triggered a ton of short-term capital gains because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't ask for advice and they showed up too late. So now I have to go research all the things to do with stock options. I'd never worked with stock options before. Now you can imagine, I'm ashamed now to say I probably wasn't giving the best advice to each of those clients. Now, I believe I helped those clients. I believe they were better off for working with me. I also spent a ton of time learning new stuff because I wasn't an expert on any of the things that we were talking about. So this is one of the other reasons I'm so passionate about advisors developing a niche market is because you become the expert on those topics. And it's a heck of a lot easier to stay up to date on one focused area than to try and spread yourself super thin by being an expert in all the things. And so, I would encourage you, if you don't yet have a niche, there's various exercises that you can do to sort of help develop this. But the best way I can use to define a niche is, and it's Steve Wershing is sort of the niche guy in our space that talks about this. But I love his framing of a niche is simply the pain point, the issue you want to help clients solve, right? What's the issue you're going to be the expert in helping your clients solve? And getting really clear about what that pain point is. It could be profession-based. We work with doctors, work with lawyers, work with architects. It can be psychographic. It can be demographic, and life stage-based. We work with recently divorced women who are financially independent for the first time, or the sole breadwinner for the first time. Like all of these things, like we could talk niche for days. But once you really get selective there, it's a whole lot easier to stay up to date on all the new things. Because I'll give you one example. We have a study group in XYPN, and all of these advisors focus on stock options. That's their jam. They meet weekly, I believe, to talk about the latest research and the latest educational materials and all that about stock options. Right? Me, don't have stock options, don't deal with that. That is not my interest. For them, they are the experts. And so if a client shows up and asks me about stock options, well, one, I don't know I'm just going to send them over there. But two, it would take me so long to try to get up to speed on all the things these advisors know. So it's just an example of, try to find the thing that ultimately you're the expert in, that you can be that expert, which is something that you'll be able to sort of develop over time. Okay, so I'm going to bring Katie from backstage to front stage. Welcome to technology. And I know all of you said use Zoom, but Zoom can't do this. That's why this software is so cool. So Katie, welcome. Katie is one of our long-term team members on the marketing team. She is one who makes magic happen, who deletes access to our website for me, or my access to the website, so I can't tinker with things. But I appreciate you joining, Katie. She's the one who made all of today happen and was not expecting to be on camera, but I appreciate you joining. So you want to kick off some questions?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Alan. So our first one here comes from Ken, and he is asking, after a plan sets a number of to-dos for a client, do you have any suggestions on how to serve as an accountability partner to follow up to check that they are accomplishing the actions, such as setting up a progress follow-up meeting?
Yeah, this is one of those things that the best financial plan is worthless if it's not implemented. Okay, so sometimes a poorly implemented plan is better than a great plan not implemented. And so one thing I used to do was I would give a checklist of like the 20 or 25 planning recommendations that I had out of the plans. I'd have the plan. I did sort of a 3-phase. There was like a checklist on the front, maybe 12 to 15 pages of narrative that I would write and customize for each client. And then, the Money Guide Pro, Write Capital, whatever, print out on the back end. And let me tell you, no one looked at that printout on the back end, so don't do that. But I would create this long checklist. And what I would find is we'd have our next quarterly meeting, and they would show up with the checklist, and like one thing had gotten done, and it had usually gotten done the day before our meeting. Okay. And then they would go back, and the next quarter, another thing got done. And I learned that in the end, people are busy. They're hiring us because they're so busy. They don't want to learn this stuff. They don't want to try to figure it all out themselves. And so what I would encourage you to do is try to identify the one next most important thing that has to get done, right? Not the 20, not the 10. All of those things need to get done at some point. But let's just say, what's the next most important thing? Is it changing beneficiary designations on your 401k? Okay, just give them the one task. Give them a win. All right. And because they can go online, they can do it that night and be like, wow, I got it done. And when they get that done, send them another one. And then send them another one. And you can track all this in your CRM. You could set up some folks set up project boards. Some people use technology like Nudge or others to sort of send reminders about tasks. But you can do this low tech or high tech, automated or manual. But just what's the next thing that has to get done? And I think what you'll find is that clients are much more likely to get it done. One of the other things, and I'm trying to remember exactly what they call it, but we have at least one advisor that basically has a get your stuff done type meeting. And it's like a 15-minute check-in where it's, hey, Monday, at 2:00, we're going to jump on and just talk about the next thing that's got to get done and what all you got done. And they're giving a little bit longer of a list and just helping them through that. I'm a little hesitant to ever commit to anything on a regular basis like that, because when you have always be thinking, can I do this for 100 clients? Or am I sort of, pinning myself into a bad spot there? But yeah, that would be my encouragement when you're thinking about all the to-dos, all the things that could get done. Just remember, if they just get one thing done, it's actually way better than getting nothing done. All right. One thing is better than nothing. And if you give them 20, nothing's going to get done.
I love that. And you're definitely speaking my language when you talk about automating your tasks and the next, kind of dividing and conquering with the next thing. So in the theme of technology issues, when I marked that question as answered, my screen is just jumbling all the questions on the right-hand side. So
it's all good. I can pull the next one.
Okay, that would be great. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah. So what happens with regulators if they are unhappy with what you've provided on a monthly basis when they come in? So thanks, Kevin, for this question. Just a reminder, if you go over second tab down, you got chat, Q&A, polls. So that middle one there, or second to the top, if you go in there, you can ask questions. We'll be answering these live questions until we run out, and then we'll move back over to some of the earlier submitted questions. So each state is different, and so you need to talk with your regulator. This is actually something that I don't encourage enough. Just if you're in the state or you're thinking about registering, just call the regulator and have a conversation with them. Right? Regulators are really nice people. We have like 3 prior regulators on staff, and they're great. Okay. They're not evil people that are out to get us and shut our firms down. They're truly trying to follow the rules that were set by state legislature and the law that was made, and then the rules that were then adopted in order to protect consumers. Okay. That's what they're there to do. So call them and ask how they view this. So some states are different. In general, I don't, the regulators are not showing up at the advisor's office saying, hey, what'd you do in February for your client? Usually what they're doing, they look at your ADV and they read your client agreement, and then they ask you, did you do the things you said you were going to do? It reminds me of on the advice pay side, we go through an audit, a data security audit every year. And it's a really intense process. And I remember asking, okay, do you have the checklist for all the things we need to do? And I said, no, that's not really how an audit works. An audit doesn't say, here are the things I think you should be doing. An audit says, what did you say in your policies you were going to do? Did you do it? And unfortunately, did you document that you did it? Okay, it's one thing to say, yeah, I reviewed the emails like I said I was going to. The question is, did you document that it happened? And I find the audit process with regulators to be the same way. where they're coming in asking those questions of, what'd you say you were going to do? Did you do it? Can you prove it? And ideally, and most typically, you're going to be able to do that. Now, there are times in some states, we'll pick on the state of Washington. They are one that really is not a fan of subscription-based models. They actually force time tracking. So if you're in the state of Washington, if you're doing a subscription retainer type ongoing fee, you have to track your time and be able to prove that you provided enough value for the fee that you're charging, commensurate with an hourly rate. Unfortunately, that's an individual state. That is not most states. So, but if you're in Washington, you might want to talk to your regulators and find out what the expectation is before they show up. Did your screen get unjumbled, Katie?
It did. So our next question is coming from Thomas, and he asked, where did you learn about equity compensation?
Yeah, back in the day, I'd have to go back and even look. I am certainly not an expert, and I see in the chat this resource got shared when we were looking at building out an equity program here at XYPN for our team. MyStockOptions.com was the go-to. It may not be the prettiest site, but man, there's a lot of amazing information and content on that site. So I highly recommend MyStockOptions.com. It's a great place to learn. I'm not aware of any designation or educational programs specifically for stock options equity programs. I think a lot of that is trial by fire. But you can learn a lot on that website. You can learn a lot by connecting with some peers that are experts in stock options, and to be able to learn from each other, share those resources back and forth. That's usually my go-to.
Great. Thank you for that. Do you want to do our last poll real quick? And
yeah,
we can queue up one or two more pre-submitted questions.
Absolutely. So I'll queue up this next poll, and I saw a question actually come in through the chat about technology. So I'll answer that one, and then we can jump in. But this last poll, again, third section down to the little bar chart there. If you go look, it says, what excites you most about either becoming or have become an independent fee-only advisor? This ties in a little bit with one of our earlier questions, but just curious about the motivation. What motivated you to become an advisor, to maybe to go fee-only, become independent? So you wanted to be your own boss. You wanted to be able to choose who and how to serve clients, wanted more autonomy over the process. Was it more mission driven around just wanting to make a difference in the world for those clients, for yourself? The flexibility and really being able to own your own schedule, not having a manager dictating every hour of the workday, or the income potential. Was it really financially driven, which is totally fine. There's no judgment here. You can say that the income potential was really where it was at. It's really interesting. Michael has done some interesting research around this, and that a lot of people who are driven by income potential stay in the commission world because they think, well, I can just get the next big sale, and yet the advisors who work on an AUM or a retainer basis actually make more money. So those who are more financially motivated don't go fee only, and yet fee only is actually where you make a lot more money than on the commission side many times. So interesting tidbit. All right, let me see.
Yeah, so Tiffany had asked, when starting out, what are the top 5 technologies to use with regard to a CRM, performance reporting, billing, and risk tolerance that integrate together?
Oh, the holy grail of technology.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you that there was a tech stack that did that. We get pretty close. If you referencing just educational materials, Kitsis has a new technology map that you can see all the CRMs and all the planning software. It doesn't show all the integrations yet, that they hasn't gotten that far with it. But you can just look at that list and just be like, oh, wow, this is totally overwhelming at the number of technologies. So one thing I would say is early days, don't overthink it. Okay, what you need to be focused on is getting clients, and so the core technology that does integrate really well together. I mean, we have our tech stack here at XYPN that we provide members as part of our membership fee, and one of the reasons we have selected the technology that we have, or built some of the technology that we have, is because it all works together. So we provide WealthBox as a CRM solution, Right Capital as a financial planning software. We provide Capitec as a performance reporter, or you could also use Orion through us. We have a really great relationship there. And then for billing, we built AdvicePay to be able to handle billing for your financial planning fees. And all of those systems work really well together. And so you can see, some of your AdvicePay information inside of WealthBox when you do that integration, and be able to show that, information across different systems. So that's a place that I would start. I like to joke that I think we have 1,600 members in XY now. I think 82% of them use Wealthbox as a CRM, and because we're providing it. And so if I just think about whatever that is, 1,200, 1,300 people that have probably saved 10 hours of CRM demo time each, which means something like, what did I just come up with? 5 years, 6 years of just work time has been saved by not having to go through this entire choice process on what CRM to select. So don't overdo it.
Yeah, time is money, that's for sure. And we are always getting the question of how can I save more time or create more time in my days? So it looks like we have answers from our polls. If you want to,
I don't
want to steal your thunder.
No,
so
you're good.
You want to share
some of the answers here with what excites you the most. Our leader was choosing who and how to serve my clients. So a lot of doing financial planning my way. And then the runner-up was flexibility and managing my own schedule. So two very autonomy-based answers. Really cool to see.
Yeah. Do you feel like we have time for another question, Alan?
I think we can squeeze one more in.
Grab one from our mailbag.
Yeah, let's look over here. Let's see. Let's say I highlighted one. Let me roll up here. If you see a really good one to end on.
Let's see. Did we talk about key questions that separate clients who might not want to pay for ongoing advice versus those that desire it?
Good question. So questions to ask about ongoing relationship. I think early on, being able to ask some of those early questions in sort of that discovery process or whatever you call your sort of prospect meeting, because you're interviewing them to see if they're going to be a good fit the same way they're interviewing you, to see if you're going to be the right advisor for them, and really understanding what's motivating them to come talk to an advisor. Is it this acute problem and they're saying, hey, I just need this one thing fixed and that's all I need? Do they see value in sort of being able to hand off some of the ongoing responsibility, some of the ongoing accountability for the financial plan and monitoring and keeping up to date? I find DIYers are pretty easy to suss out. And look, I'm pro working with DIYers. Okay, so this is not a negative. It's just if you're saying I want only ongoing relationships, you probably should not be working with do-it-yourselfers. That's more of a hourly project-based model type client. But if you want that ongoing relationship, trying to figure out, okay, is this someone who reads the news and keeps up with markets and wants education? They want to understand it. Do they say things like, hey, I just want a second opinion? Like, I have my financial plan, we're working on it, but I just want a second opinion to see sort of what you think and I want to see if there's any gaps. Those are pretty clear indicators that they're looking for a project plan. They're not looking for an ongoing relationship, which again is totally fine if that's the model that you provide and want to work with those clients. But if not, just always have an hourly or project-based advisor to refer to. All right. No one likes, I said this earlier, no one wakes up in the morning excited to talk to a stranger about money. They put themselves out there in an incredibly vulnerable position to come talk to us. And so we always want to honor that and respect the fact that it took a lot for them to come to our office. Right? We don't think about it. We're financial planners. Now, I would ask, when's the last time you talked to a stranger about money as an advisor out there? But like, we live in this world of money and numbers and math and all that. And like, it's nothing for us, but for them, it's a big deal. So let's always honor the fact that the commitment that it took for them to show up in our office by giving them a referral to an advisor that's going to be a good fit. If you don't know anyone, go find someone. There's lots of advisors who are out there who are leveraging that model, who are younger in their career, newer in sort of their firm launch process. And so they can benefit from those referrals.
Yeah. And we definitely see that in our forums of members referring other members or our VIP Facebook community as a way to connect with other advisors who might be providing that service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're out of time. So Katie, do you want to wrap us up?
I would love to. I'm sure I won't do as strong of a job as Amy, but to echo Alan, we appreciate you all bearing with us through the technical difficulties. You don't get to choose when the internet drops, and it's always at the best times, right? But we definitely appreciate you joining us today and for all the questions you submitted. We had such a great discussion, and so appreciate all of you driving that through the questions you submitted before and those that you submitted today. When you leave the webinar today, if you click that back to lobby in the upper left corner, we'll be asking for your feedback on the event. We do read each of those submissions, and we'd really love to hear what you liked most and any suggestions you have for future events. So when we leave, please just click that button. We hope you found value in the discussion today and the resources that have been shared. Sometime later today, you are going to get an email with a link to the recording, and it will also give you a link to a landing page that's going to have all of those resources listed. So we don't expect you to have been collecting all of them, but we want to make those available to you for a quick reference. Those resources shared today are really just a glimpse of the support you can receive through XYPN membership. While many of our members are initially drawn in by the tech stack or compliance, like we talked about, the education, we always hear that they stay for the community, and that's something we're really proud of, to have 1,600 members strong supporting each other. If you're excited about the idea of having that ongoing support during your journey to firm ownership, the team here would love to talk to you about how membership can specifically help you. So we'll drop a link in the chat as well so that you can get a chance to meet and talk with Amy, who wasn't here today, or some of the other team members about membership. So we look forward to seeing you all around the network in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.